Motorists in the eastern United States are still experiencing fuel shortages and long lines at gasoline stations. A cyber attack against the Colonial Pipeline by hackers known as Darkside created the shortages, which led to the consumer panic. What do we know about the hacker group Darkside, and what's the likelihood of another cyber attack? Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, former CIA hacker and cybersecurity analyst Eric Cole says America's aging energy grid is vulnerable.
Darkside is an entity based out of Russia that have really commercialized cyber hacking. They've been around for about 3 years, and prior to this attack, they were focused on small to medium-sized organizations. So if you look at 2019, 2020, they would go after companies for ransoms of approximately $100,000. They would do 8 to 10 a month. So they were generating about $12 million a year. This month, they upped the ante where now they're going after much larger organizations and asking for ransoms between $1 to $3 million. And unfortunately, in this case, this was a preventable attack. From what we know about Colonial, they had older systems that weren't kept up to date and was fairly easy for the adversary to break in and compromise.
So, Eric, this really demonstrates a vulnerability of the U.S. energy grid to terrorists or hackers who are simply trying to extort money. So how likely is another cyber attack like this one, and why?
It's almost a guarantee that this is going to be the new trend because a couple factors at place. One, it looks like Colonial is going to pay the ransom. They said that they're going to be up and running by end of the week, and the only possible way that could happen is if they pay the ransom. And the problem with this is once one entity pays a multi-million-dollar ransom, every other hacking group knows that other companies are going to pay. So this is now the new norm. And I wish I could say that Colonial had weaker security than anyone else. But the problems that we saw with Colonial of systems that were outdated and operational systems directly accessible from the internet is present in most of the critical infrastructure across the United States. This is a problem we knew about for years and unfortunately has gone ignored.
And it's like caving to terrorists. Once you do it, they just keep on doing it, right? And President Biden says he intends to talk to Russian President Putin about the attack. If the Russian government was not responsible for this, then what can Putin do about Darkside? Anything?
There's not really a lot that can be done. And unfortunately, even though no one's saying it, this is a fallout from the U.S. pressing sanctions against Russia approximately 4 to 5 weeks ago, because January of this year, Putin was telling Russian criminal elements basically lay off of the United States. We have a new president. We're trying to work on relationships, and you need to minimize that. So he was trying to put pressure on these entities. Then once the sanctions came out where Russian government was blamed, Putin pretty much stepped back and said, game on. And he told companies, listen, I'm not going to sort of restrict you from anything. And then now we see this increase. So I'm hoping that President Biden's conversation with Putin is going to be, hey, can we sort of play together nicely, and can you help us and we help you? Because clearly sanctions didn't work. So maybe some political agendas will actually have a better job of minimizing or reducing these attacks coming from Russia.
I'm sure you're familiar with the saying in D.C., never let a good crisis go to waste. So the timing of this crisis is interesting. It may likely play right into the hands of politicians who are trying to advance trillions of dollars in new spending on U.S. infrastructure. But I'm sure you believe there's some steps that can be taken to protect systems at a much cheaper cost. What can be done?
So first thing that can be done is any operational systems, what we call operational technology that runs pipelines or critical infrastructure, those should never be connected to the internet. And if you go back 2 or 3 years ago, that was the case. But because of the pandemic and working from home, they needed to allow access for more people. So they started interconnecting these systems, which created that vulnerability. However, we have to step back and realize a lot of the infrastructure that's being used to run these companies are 20 to 30 years old. So I actually think that if these lawmakers want to get their bill passed, they need to add the word cyber before infrastructure. Because to me, spending $2 trillion on roads and bridges, maybe not. Spending $2 trillion on cyber infrastructure and security definitely would make sense based on all the vulnerabilities that are present in our critical infrastructure today.
Okay, you're sounding like a futurist there. Eric Cole, cybersecurity expert, author of the book Cyber Crisis, Protecting Your Business from Real Threats in the Virtual World, available starting June 1st, right?
June 1st is the date. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing your time and insights, Eric.
For more important issues in the news, watch the Global Lane tonight at 8:30 Eastern on the CBN News